Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today, we're tearing into a stack of insights focused on a role that is, frankly, pretty essential for getting complex work done.
Yeah.
The project manager.
And our source material for this deep dive really hones in on a pervasive challenge lots of companies face. It asks this crucial question: are we genuinely tapping into the full power of our project managers?
Or are we, maybe without even realizing it, completely missing the boat on the value they could be delivering?
Exactly.
So our mission here is to sort of pull back the curtain on the true potential of a skilled PM, shine a light on the surprisingly common ways this role gets sidelined or misused, and then figure out how unleashing a PM's real leadership capabilities can, utterly transform project outcomes and maybe even boost the overall health of an organization.
It's really about understanding that a project manager isn't just the person making charts or, chasing deadlines.
Right.
It's about grasping the significant, sometimes kind of invisible cost when you don't let them do what they actually do best.
Okay, so let's just dive right in. The core, almost startling idea running through our source is that project managers are not just frequently undervalued, but actively misused. And the author argues this isn't just some minor inefficiency.
That's what's so critical. When you're not using your PMs effectively, the source contends you're not just leaving potential on the table, you are creating significant risk.
Right.
You're actively hindering projects and strategic goals because the person designed to drive them forward, they aren't in the driver's seat.
Okay, that makes sense. If they're not driving, who is? Or what are they doing instead? How does this misuse actually show up day to day?
Well, the source lists several patterns, and you've probably seen some of these yourself. One of the most frustrating for PMs and probably least effective for projects is what the author calls the note taker.
Yes, the classic, where someone hired for their strategic ability and, leadership chops is primarily just stuck documenting meetings.
Yeah, circulating action items, maybe sending out calendar invites, things like that.
Precisely. They're capable of orchestrating the entire project symphony, really, but they're confined to just writing down the score.
Their leadership potential is just completely sidelined by admin tasks.
Totally.
Which sounds maybe a bit like the next one the source mentions, the admin assistant. Is that just a different flavor of the same problem?
It's certainly related, yeah. This is where the PM is kind of buried in general clerical work scheduling, logistical coordination that doesn't really need project leadership oversight.
Okay.
It's necessary work, sure, but it's not project management. It pulls them away from focusing on strategy, risk, and, team guidance.
It's simply not why you hire someone with PM expertise.
Exactly right. Not at all.
And there's the one that just sounds exhausting. The all-in-one.
Oh, definitely exhausting. This is that unrealistic expectation that the PM is some kind of superhero who can just single-handedly handle everything.
Right, like budgeting, yes, but also jumping into code.
Right.
Or doing customer support. Yeah, troubleshooting technical issues, basically filling any gap on the team, whatever it is.
The source calls that a pretty fast track to burnout. And, a PM's strength is leading the team to handle those tasks.
Exactly, not becoming a one-person department themselves.
Right.
Another common pitfall is using PMs only as the crisis manager.
Okay, so they're only brought in when everything has already gone completely wrong. Like firefighters.
Yes, precisely like firefighters. But the source argues this completely misses the point of good project management.
Because?
Because a skilled PM's value is in being proactive, identifying risks, anticipating problems, guiding the project to avoid the fire in the first place.
Yeah.
Waiting for a crisis means you're just using them for damage control instead of proactive success planning.
And that leads nicely, or maybe not so nicely, to the final misuse the source highlights, which feels particularly deflating, the overlooked leader.
This is perhaps the most tragic, really, because the PM is trying to lead. They have valuable strategic insights. They see potential roadblocks coming.
They understand the dependencies.
Right. But their advice is just ignored, or their input isn't sought in critical decisions.
So they see the train coming. They're basically yelling, stop, but nobody's listening. And the project inevitably suffers.
Exactly. And it's not just frustrating for the PM. The project's health is directly impacted because that crucial guidance is missing from the decisions being made.
So, okay, if you put all these common misuses together, turning leaders into note-takers, strategic thinkers into admin assistants, proactive planners into crisis responders, and ignoring the insights of capable leaders, what's the actual impact on the organization? What does that do?
Well, the consequences, the source makes really clear, are significant and they kind of cascade throughout the company. You see the obvious things first. Projects taking longer than they should, budgets getting blown, deadlines being missed. Those are the, visible costs.
But there's a deeper layer, right? Less obvious, but maybe even more damaging in the long run.
Absolutely. The source talks about the hidden costs. Things like a damaged organizational culture where roles aren't respected, plummeting team morale because maybe there's no clear direction or effective leadership, and crucially, high turnover.
Right, because talented project managers just aren't going to stick around if they're treated like glorified administrators or, ignored when they actually try to lead.
The author actually shares some personal anecdotes about leaving jobs for precisely these reasons.
Yeah, I saw that. It makes sense.
And it makes perfect sense when their core skills, leadership, communication, problem solving, are actively being prevented from being used. It's just disheartening.
It weakens the very muscles that make them valuable.
Exactly. And good PMs will leave to find places where they can use those skills.
This pivots us nicely then to what those core skills are. Because, as we said up front, a PM isn't just about software or Gantt charts. Their real superpower kind of lies in something much deeper.
Yes, absolutely. It's their soft skills. The source identifies these as the true engine of a great PM. And first and foremost, it calls out leadership.
This feels key. They should be inspiring the team.
Right.
Motivating individuals, providing guidance, keeping everyone aligned on the common goal.
It's that ability to keep the momentum going and the team focused, even when things get tough.
Okay, what else?
Then there's exceptional communication. They have to be that central hub, keeping every stakeholder informed, bridging gaps between different departments or teams.
Making sure everyone's on the same page.
Yeah, ensuring clarity across the board to prevent those misunderstandings that can just totally derail a project.
And, in any project, things are going to go wrong at some point. So problem solving must be non-negotiable.
Definitely. A great PM isn't just reacting. They're anticipating potential issues, strategizing workarounds, identifying and mitigating risks long before they become major headaches.
Which probably requires adaptability too.
Oh, absolutely. Projects are dynamic, things change. A skilled PM can pivot quickly when priorities shift or new information comes to light or, unexpected obstacles appear.
Finding alternative routes to keep things moving forward.
Exactly.
Okay, something perhaps less talked about, but I imagine incredibly important in project environments is emotional intelligence.
Absolutely vital.
Yeah.
Understanding team dynamics, managing conflict, recognizing when stress levels are getting high.
Knowing how to keep the team engaged and motivated.
Especially during those crunch times. Projects are run by people, right? And managing that human element is just critical.
Of course, there's also the classic time management, but it sounds like it's not just about their personal time.
No, not at all. It's juggling all the project tasks, prioritizing effectively across the board, and ensuring milestones are met without sacrificing quality or, importantly, burning out the team.
Right.
And finally, the source highlights stakeholder management. This involves keeping everyone invested and informed, managing expectations, providing transparent updates.
Making sure all the key players feel heard and valued throughout the process.
Exactly.
Wow. Okay, it's really clear these soft skills are what elevate a PM from just an administrator to a genuine project driver. Now, the source brings up an interesting model that's apparently becoming more popular, maybe as a way for companies to access these high-level skills flexibly. The concept of the fractional PM.
Yes, this is where project manager works for multiple clients, essentially managing projects on a part-time or contract basis rather than being a full-time employee at just one company.
And the benefits seem pretty clear. Flexibility for the company, potentially more cost-effective than a full-time hire.
And access to high-level expertise without the long-term commitment or, the overhead.
There's a but, isn't there?
Yeah, the source makes a really important point here. The fractional model doesn't magically solve the fundamental problem of misuse. Even a fractional PM needs to be utilized correctly. They need to be focused on strategy and leadership, not just brought in to do administrative tasks fractionally.
You still need to unlock their strategic value, regardless of the employment model.
Precisely.
So, okay, if companies recognize these issues, they see the potential value, how do they actually fix this? How do they properly utilize their project managers, whether full-time or fractional, and get that full value? The source offers some actionable steps.
First, and this feels maybe most foundational, define the role clearly. Be explicit about the expectations. Ensure they align with PM's skills and experience.
And crucially, remove those purely administrative burdens that just drag them down and pull them away from the strategic work.
Exactly. Second, empower your PMs. Give them the actual authority they need to make decisions, lead their teams, steer the project.
Trust their expertise and judgment.
Yeah, rather than constantly second-guessing them or making end-run decisions without their input. That's key.
Okay. Third,
Provide support. Ensure they have the resources they need. This might mean administrative support staff, maybe access to specific tools, or just team members who can handle tasks outside the PM's core leadership responsibilities.
don't make them do it all themselves.
Right. And finally, invest in development. Focus on training and growth, not just in technical PM tools, but specifically in those crucial soft skills we talked about.
Leadership, communication.
Negotiation, emotional intelligence. These are the skills that really amplify their impact.
Okay.
So when you put all this together, the picture that emerges is pretty clear. A project manager is really designed to be the strategic leader and the vital connective tissue of a project,
Driving success, not through paperwork.
but through those essential human and strategic skills.
They are absolutely not meant to be glorified administrators or note takers or just those last-ditch crisis managers.
And as the source powerfully argues, underutilizing or misusing this role carries a significant, often invisible price tag for the organization.
Missed goals, a struggling culture.
Loss of talented people who could have made a massive difference. It all adds up.
When you empower them, provide the right support, and really leverage their full skill set, you unlock immense potential.
And that leads directly to more successful projects, happier teams, and a much more robust and adaptable organization overall.
Which leaves us with that provocative thought the source offers, and maybe something worth really sitting with if you're involved in managing or working on projects.
Yeah, it asks, are your project managers truly empowered to lead and drive success? Or are they being held back, maybe buried under tasks that don't align with the immense value they could actually be providing?
It's a question that really gets to the heart of project success, doesn't it? Something to think about.